KillSwitch.
The game begins now.
KillSwitch has almost a legendary reputation. It's credited as laying the groundwork for later games like Gears of War and Uncharted. Its contributions to the gaming world are not up for debate, and I won't really be talking about its status too much in this video. I want to focus more on the story, the graphics, the controls, the mechanics themselves, not just the idea of those mechanics. KillSwitch was one of the first cover shooters, yes, but I wanted to find out if KillSwitch is more than just the godfather of the genre. Does it stand on its own? Is it worth checking out? Let's dive in. KillSwitch released in 2003. If you've ever played a cover shooter, you'll be right at home here. I found the button layout to be surprisingly similar to Gears. I played on the 360 and it didn't take me long at all to figure it all out. Usually with older games, I have to learn the game's quirks. For example, what sort of pace I should be moving through levels at, or maybe coming to grips with the controls or mechanics. Camera movement especially is a big one in older titles. But with KillSwitch, I picked it up maybe 5 minutes into the first level. It's surprisingly modern, especially the cover mechanics themselves. I played many cover shooters over the years, new and old, but this one felt newer than it was. The way you snap to cover, pull off of cover, aim down sights. I could go on, but the list is extensive. I was in shock at just how fluid the second-to-second gameplay was. Performance-wise, the game runs like a dream and lends a lot to the perceived speed of the game. The cover mechanic is critical to the gameplay. If you refuse to use it, the game will punish you. Enemies eat away at your health, even on the normal difficulty. The core gameplay loop generally involves you taking cover, shooting at a few enemies, then walking to the next area to shoot more, rinse and repeat. There are a few variations to this formula. Sometimes you'll need to find a key card to open a door, or you'll need to hit a switch to lower an elevator, for example. These are some of my favorite levels in the game. It doesn't sound like much, but trust me, any variation in a game like this is a good thing. The game spans across 5 different levels, each broken up into 3 to 4 missions. Middle East, Caspian Sea, North Korea, Temple Ruins, and Archer Base. In general, they do tend to blend together though. I would have liked to see more variety. The level design itself allows the gameplay to be put on display, but for how long can a mechanic, new or old, really carry a game? This blandness carries over to the weapons as well. It's just a standard military shooter roster of weaponry: SMGs, shotguns, ARs, throwables, etc. Strangely enough, no pistols and only one launcher and sniper. Normally I'd have an issue with this, but the core weapons are serviceable. Enemies drop so quickly and I never felt the need to have a handgun or a launcher. Most weapons in their class more or less felt the same. ARs maybe had a different recoil pattern or they sounded different, but controlling your fire rate made them feel similar. That's where the majority of the gunplay takes place anyway, so in that medium range where you'll be hunkering behind cover anyway, waiting on an enemy to pop up so you can burst fire a few rounds into them. Some weapons did feel a bit useless, like the sniper for example. It takes 2 body shots to take an enemy down, and many of the levels in this game are covered in fog, so you have such limited availability to snipe anyways. On top of this, enemies don't spawn unless you walk past a certain point in the level, and it's quite obvious when this happens. You'll get an audio cue or the visual of enemies spawning itself, you know, a door will swing open or whatever. So again, you'll be mostly shooting at that close to mid-range, and I found that the SMGs and ARs were the best weapons suited for this purpose. The shotgun I sort of just used for fun. It never really served any utility outside of variety. There are a few suppressed weapons available as well, but again, they serve no purpose outside of that cool factor. You know, there's no stealth in the game. As soon as you take a shot, everyone is alerted to your presence. Now, I haven't really talked about the grenades, but they are crucial to your success in KillSwitch. So even if you don't kill an enemy with a grenade, it causes them to jump out from cover to dodge the explosion. This gives you more than enough time to then gun them down while they're on the ground. Alternatively, if you have the flashbangs, you can clear out entire rooms with these things. They might be the strongest flashbangs of all time, I don't know, but tossing these in a room will cause enemies who weren't even looking at the flash to throw their arms up and expose themselves. Moving along, the soundtrack for this game straight up slaps. The game's soundtrack was done by Kevin Manthe. If you were a kid in the early 2000s, you've probably heard this guy's work. Johnny Test, Shaolin Showdown, and most importantly, Invader Zim. Take a listen to this song and tell me it wouldn't fit into an episode of Invader Zim. I dare you. As someone who loves this kind of stuff, these songs really do hype you up and make the combat more intense than it really is. It's such a bummer too, because unfortunately, the missions are just so short. You don't get a whole lot of time to enjoy the songs. I'll go ahead and link the full soundtrack in the description if you'd like to check it out. I know I did after I beat the game. I do have some issues with the game, but overall it's a fun experience. The story, unfortunately, is, well, a mess to put it lightly. As always, if you'd like to skip my spoiler-heavy breakdown of the story, please skip to this point in the video. So, up until this point, I haven't really discussed the story, and normally I would have given an intro or a cutscene at least, but KillSwitch decides to tell most of its story through comms. Yep, you'll be sitting there watching your character stand around while important plot points are relegated to what essentially is a phone call. With this, I found it hard to pay attention or to be invested in the story, but I'll try to cover the main points at least. So anyways, you play as a super soldier named Bishop. Through a neural link implant, you're being controlled by an unseen character named Controller. Controller and his boss Archer want to start a war between the North and the West so that they can sell the tech in Bishop's head to the highest bidder. They plan on using Bishop to launch a missile containing a deadly nerve agent, and after the deed is done, they have every intention of killing Bishop and blaming the terrorist attack on a US government-backed Spec Ops mission gone wrong. Throughout the game, Bishop experiences a recurring vision, one of a woman in a dress. As we progress, that vision gets longer and longer, more footage added onto it, and just as Bishop is about to launch the missile, a new character named Duchess gains control of the neural implant and Bishop himself.
Thank you for playing.
I'm in. Overriding the system now. Playtime is over.
Shortly after she gains control, Bishop is able to replay the entire sequence of clips in his head. And it turns out the woman in the dress was his wife, Lynn, and that night was the last time he saw her alive. Archer had broken into his home to take control of him and the tech inside of his head. If that wasn't enough, he also killed Lynn. So now, Bishop, with his memories completely restored, he goes on a mission to take down Archer. After taking the fight to Archer's base, the game ends with a short boss fight. The boss fight was awful. At first I thought I could just stun lock him or hit him with explosives, but that didn't work. Instead, all you have to do is hide in cover or wait for him to stop moving and blast him with a few bursts of any rifle you have. He'll start moving again, so you have to wait in cover for him to stop and rinse and repeat a few times, and that's it.
So this is how the game ends?
No, it ends like this. Game over.
Bishop, are you there?
I'm here, Duchess.
And Archer?
I see a body. Bishop out.
Well, other than a poorly placed scene at the end of the credits.
It's not really over, is it?
No, it's just the beginning. Archer was able to duplicate the tech. He sold it to anyone willing to pay for it.
Which would be everybody. Who wouldn't want their very own army of unstoppable killing machines? The shipping crates. Damn it. Who knows how many have gotten their hands on the engine now?
And that's not all. Archer mentioned a second version.
Of what?
This game never got and never will get a sequel. I can't believe they decided to release this with such a poorly told and executed story. It's an interesting concept, for sure. I mean, Bishop being used as a literal weapon to pit the world against one another for profit. I'm used to seeing this plot play out from the third person, where you're the individual tasked with taking this psychotic person down, but I don't know, I can't help but feel like they blew it, and ultimately the story serves one purpose and one purpose alone. That's to move the gameplay forward. My playthrough took me a bit over 2 hours to complete, and while, yes, this is very short, it's not usually an issue if the game is replayable, and unfortunately, KillSwitch is not one of those times. There's nothing more beyond the campaign, no split screen, no online multiplayer, no horde mode, nothing. I would have really liked to see a horde mode of some kind. I think it would have allowed the mechanics to shine through without being bogged down with story of any kind. Your enjoyment of KillSwitch will depend on one thing and one thing alone. If you like the gameplay, can it carry the entire game? In my case, I don't think it did, and no matter how good that gameplay was, I don't think it would. I mentioned earlier in the video how we talk about the legacy of KillSwitch, and after playing it myself, I can see why. The influence of KillSwitch is more important than the game itself, a stepping stone to better things ahead. KillSwitch is best enjoyed by the curious types, the archivists, the game history nerds like me. KillSwitch isn't a classic, but it's an important release in the history of gaming.
KillSwitch.